Let's talk about the Barbie and Ken killers. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka met at a bar in Canada in 1987. They got married just 2 months later, and over the course of nearly 3 years, murdered at least 3 teenage girls. The first victim was Carla's little sister Tammy, who the couple drugged with animal tranquilizers, raped, and tortured to death. The second was 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey, who the couple brutally tortured and sexually abused before strangling Leslie and cutting her body up into little pieces and placing them into concrete blocks. The third victim, Kristen French, was abducted in 1992 and her naked body was found just 4 days later by police. This eventually led to the couple's arrest and both of them to be charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Carla was given a 12-year sentence, whereas Paul was given life in prison because Carla actually testified against him in court. Carla has been out of jail for a few years and is now married to her attorney's brother and has 3 children.
Guys, they got him. So this is everything we know so far about Charlie Kirk's assassin. His name is Tyler Robinson. He's only 22 years old and lives with his family in Washington, Utah. In fact, that is actually where he was taken into custody at 10 p.m. on Thursday night. That is over 200 miles away from the Utah University, which is about a 4-hour drive. And still, despite this, he was arrested within 36 hours of the shooting. FBI Director Kash Patel said this was a historic time period and thanked the record-breaking 11,000 plus leads they received from the public. They said at about 8:20 a.m. Tyler was seen arriving at the Utah University in a gray Dodge Challenger and that he was wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and a backpack. And that's actually an important detail because once he got on top of the roof, he changed his clothes. But then once he fled the scene, he changed yet again back into the shorts and t-shirt, suggesting this was a planned getaway and he was trying to throw off detectives. They confirmed that he was not a student at this university, and his family said that Tyler has become increasingly political in recent years. The family told the FBI that one night recently at dinner, Tyler mentioned Charlie Kirk was going to be speaking at this Utah college, and they spoke about how Tyler didn't like him and many of his political viewpoints. Authorities also discovered Discord messages where Tyler spoke about needing to retrieve a rifle from a drop point and about leaving this weapon wrapped in a towel. They do say, however, that Tyler acted alone, and currently there is no more arrests that will be made on current information. Now, the bullets did have engravings, but I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what they mean. Notice his bulges, hey fascists, catch, if you read this, you are gay, and oh, Bella Ciao. Bella Ciao is actually an Italian song dedicated to the resistance who fought against the occupying troops of Nazi Germany. Now, in the end, it was his family members and a friend who got him to confess and led the FBI to his location. As for the $100,000 reward, we do not know if it was given to them or not, but there are unconfirmed reports that the father rejected the reward money. Tyler is now being booked into a Utah County jail and the death penalty will be pursued. Utah's governor said that this was a watershed moment in American history, but he questioned what kind of watershed moment was it? The end of a dark chapter in American history or just the beginning of a new one? Towards the end, he said social media is a cancer, log off. So that's what we know. What do you guys think?
How rare is your body? Let's find out. About 75% of people have a deviated septum, and this is a condition in which the bone and cartilage that divide the nose in half are crooked, making one nasal passage smaller than the other, and it's known to cause nosebleeds, problems breathing, or loud breathing when you're sleeping. Less than 1% of people have an extra finger crease, and it's also called camptodactyly, and it's just when you have an extra little ridge on your fingers, and it is most common on your pinky. Less than 1% of people have an eyeball scar. This is also called a macular pucker, and it's just scar tissue that forms in your eye. And it's known to cause blurred or distorted vision. And it's caused when the vitreous, which is the gel-like part of your eye, starts to pull away from the retina. Less than 1% of people can hear colors or see sounds. For example, this could happen as soon as someone hears a sound, they automatically see the color red, or as soon as they read a word, a certain color pops into their mind. About 33% of people experience motion sickness. And this 33% are highly susceptible to motion sickness, while the rest just experience it in extreme conditions. And it's caused when your brain starts to get signals from your body that it's moving, but they're mismatched and don't match up.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your life. Sexually frustrated male dolphins gang rape humans. Aircraft toilets can suck out and prolapse your rectum. 16 psi will crush a human testicle. If you can smell it, it's inside your nose. A gamma ray blast could kill us at any moment in time. Hundreds of pirate attacks occur each year, but go undocumented. Koala bears can give you chlamydia. Cockroaches live 9 days without their heads. The Island of Dolls is claimed to be one of the most haunted places in Mexico. If you die around a cat, they will likely start eating you in less than 24 hours. It begins with your eyes and cheeks. Comment on this video and let me know which fact is the most disturbing.
What if I told you the mother behind me was feeding her sons to cannibals? Behind me is Klara Maurova. She's from the Czech Republic and she had two sons, Jacob and Andrej. Her and her sister were part of this weird cult called the Grail movement. They believed by doing good deeds that they would go to heaven. Now here's where it gets dangerous. This cult also believed that they were free to commit any crimes they wanted to and nothing would affect them. And they were also cannibals. Things now got even stranger when her sister showed up with an adopted Norwegian child named Annika. She was 13 years old. Some people believe she was actually 30 and posing as a child. She was in a trafficking ring and had a lot of sympathy for her. Soon, Klara started to forget about her sons and started thinking about adopting Annika as her own. That's when this weird doctor started emailing and texting her out of nowhere. He claimed to be Annika's physician. She met up with him, he showed her her medical records, he gained her trust. The doctor said to Klara that you cannot adopt Annika because her sons are so mean to her. This was the doctor's plan all along as a cult leader. Do you guys remember that cult I was talking about at the beginning of the video? The doctor is like the head of this cult. He said to fix this, she needs to beat her boys as much as she can, for every little thing, and she fell for it. This was to cure their evil spirits. The doctor said these treatments are not working now. You need to take them to a cottage very far off from everyone else. She met up there. There were several people there, including her sister and Annika's brother. The boys were put in cages and tortured in every single way you can think possible. People there started to skin the boys and eat their flesh. They also made the boys eat their own flesh as well. And Annika, the 13-year-old, she kept saying the boys were still being mean to her to continue this abusive cycle. She was also part of that cult and she was not 13. The whole cottage shock therapy ended and they went back home. The boys were treated the exact same back home though by their mother Klara. They were put in a cellar and locked up in there. Annika was living life in a room with a ton of toys and got everything she wanted. She was basically manipulating Klara this entire time. Now here's the way that she got caught and it is crazy. Her neighbor was setting up a baby monitor for his newborn baby. Now back in like the early 2000s, if you had a baby monitor nearby, it could pick up that signal and you could see what's in there. It could jam a little bit. He managed to see these boys tied up in cages in her basement. Could you imagine the horrifying look he had on his face seeing this? And he did what every good person would do. He called the police immediately to get them some help. The police came, everybody was arrested. Klara, her sister, and Annika. And it turns out Annika was a 33-year-old woman. Her real name was Barbara Sklorova. This is a picture of Barbara Sklorova right here, aka Annika, and she was the basis for the movie Orphan. In case the story is sounding familiar, it's basically Orphan. The doctor was actually the father of that girl Annika, aka Barbara. And Klara's sister was in on this cult the entire time and manipulated her. They all got about 5 to 10 years in prison. This story definitely had the wildest turn of events I've read about.
This DEA agent accidentally shot himself in the leg during a gun safety lecture. In 2004, DEA agent Lee Page gave a lecture on gun safety. Holding his service pistol, he told the crowd he was the only one professional enough to handle the weapon safely. But seconds later, a deafening bang echoed through the room. The gun fired and Lee Page had accidentally shot himself in the leg in front of dozens of horrified students and parents. The entire moment was caught on video and quickly spread across the internet, turning what was supposed to be a serious safety demonstration into a viral spectacle of humiliation. Lee Page later sued the DEA, claiming the video ruined his career, destroying his chances of working undercover or even giving motivational talks. But in 2012, his appeal was rejected, leaving the infamous clip cemented in internet history. As the situation is awful, the irony of it is pretty funny. A man who was supposed to be teaching about guns was the one who was the most reckless with one.
This is how rare your body is compared to the rest of the world. Only 10% of the population have what is known as Morton's toe, making you extremely rare if you have this. This is where your second toe is longer than your big toe. What's even more rare is only 5% of people's tongues are tied. This is literally where your tongue is tied to the bottom of your mouth, impacting eating and speech. Only 1% of people have unbreakable bones. And if you have this, you are literally considered a superhuman. It's a mutation that makes your bones several times denser than the average human, which means someone with this mutation could walk away away from a fucking car crash completely fine. Only 10% of the population suffer from eczema. Most get it when they're a child. It's bullshit! Whereas others can get it further down the line. 50% of the population can fit their fists in their mouth. That's still pretty rare. If anyone can actually do this, please let me know. Can you tickle yourself? If so, then congratulations, you're a part of the rare 7% of the population who can actually do this. And finally, only 16% of people can make a roaring noise in their head, flexing a muscle in their jaw. Damn. Elon!
Most people believe these 3 things will save your life. They don't. Let's pretend that you're on vacation with some friends in this cabin, and you hear on the news that there's actually a killer on the loose in the woods surrounding your cabin. What do? Instinctively, you're gonna wanna ditch your friends and just start running into the woods. No shoes, no weapons, no cell phone, no sense of where you're going. But that's actually a terrible idea because the killer is in the woods, and you'd be putting yourself more in harm's way, not less. So you decide to stay put, and then you remember that your friend drove you all to the cabin in their brand new Lamborghini that was working like 5 minutes ago. So why can't you just pile into that and drive away to safety? The problem with that is anytime you're in a cabin in the woods and there's a killer on the loose around your cabin, even if it's a brand new car, it's not going to start. So don't even go out and try it. You're just sitting in the cabin doing nothing when all of a sudden you feel like someone could be watching you and you want to turn around and make sure no one is. Don't turn around because if you do, the killer will magically appear behind you.
Recent Discoveries, Part 3. An ancient Egyptian stele from the sunken city of Heraklion was recovered from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea earlier this year. Heraklion was once the largest port in Egypt over 2,000 years ago until it was destroyed by natural disasters over time. The incredibly preserved slab is made of granite and includes information about ancient taxes. This tiny species of mushroom that looks like it belongs on another planet was recently discovered in Taiwan. No one has tried consuming one yet, but the internet thinks it will allow you to see God. For decades, it was believed that the first humans arrived in North America around 13,000 years ago. But fossilized footprints recently found in New Mexico provide evidence that humans were actually here much earlier. Scientists found 60 footprints that are between 21,000 and 23,000 years old, indicating that humans occupied southern parts of the continent some 10,000 years earlier than archaeologists and historians previously thought.
Here are some kids with pure hearts. This little boy saw that this rabbit had fallen and he tried to bring it back up to his friends. The man on the TV was crying, so she grabbed a tissue for him. And these kids are reading books to dogs in a local shelter. And this kid was in charge of watching over his younger sister, so he decided to put on his Spider-Man suit. This little girl wanted her stuffed animals to have a good sleep, so she gave them her bed. And she's sleeping in the drawer. And this kid wanted to make sure that this cat didn't get wet from the rain. And this dog threw up, so she put him in a blanket and put on a little TV show for him. And this kid was waiting so patiently that he actually held hands with a mannequin. I think you're gonna be waiting a long time in this line. And this kid tucked in her vacuum.
This is massive. Yesterday, the UK witnessed one of the largest protests of its kind in modern day history. There were Charlie Kirk tributes, Elon Musk, counter-protests, wooden crosses, peace, violence, and a whole lot of British flags. It was called the Unite the Kingdom Rally, or Free Speech Festival, and it was largely organized by a man named Tommy Robinson. Police data say that up to 150,000 people turned out, while organizers claim a very different number, about millions. Now, police tend to underestimate in these scenarios, while organizers tend to overestimate. But regardless of what the exact number is, it was big. In fact, many reports state that it was one of the largest nationalist rallies in recent memory, perhaps ever. But that didn't come without opposition. Thousands of people also joined a nearby counter-protest organized by Stand Up to Racism. The Unite the Kingdom rally saw chants for Charlie Kirk, who had just been killed 3 days prior. Many held signs and flags protesting illegal immigration, free speech, and the decline of national British culture and Christianity. And while Tommy Robinson, who has criminal convictions himself, repeatedly urged prior to the rally that people remain peaceful and that this needs to be a family day out, it did not necessarily stay that way. Elon Musk, for example, who joined by video chat, called for the British government to be dissolved and warned the thousands listening that violence is coming for them and that they need to fight or die.
Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die. You either fight back or you die.
Things also broke out into physical violence, because according to the police themselves, the protest had exceeded estimates of the organizers, which meant that there was not enough space for all of them in Whitehall and Parliament Square. And when the crowds ignored directions and tried to get into secured areas, 26 police officers were injured with punches, kicks, and projectiles thrown. At least 25 people have been arrested. But here's the problem. Today, the coverage of this protest will make it seem black or white. This is either a sea of hate-filled racists or an army of heroes standing up for the country. Both are true and false. The reality is so much messier. Yes, there were definitely people that fit the worst labels. I've seen the videos. But also in attendance were families, pensioners, church groups, and ordinary people who simply feel their voices are being ignored. But labeling hundreds of thousands of people one thing doesn't explain why so many people showed up. It only makes it easier to dismiss them or join them, only contributing to the increasing division. And agree with these protesters or not, this many people taking to the streets tells you something about where the UK is right now. And oversimplifying or ignoring that might just be the most dangerous part of all.
Watch this. I don't know about you, but when I saw that the other day when my friend sent it to me, my soul almost left my body and I almost pooped my entire soul out. So yeah, if you can't tell what it is a massive megalodon animatronic, and like you can see the springs that it's on. Granted, it's not submerged in water, but the fact that it has like that rainfall coming down around it, it's still wet. And I'm still scared of wet things. It's made by a company called Horror Props, and it is in North Carolina at a haunted attraction called Woods of Terror. I bet this is so much scarier at night. Could you imagine going through this and seeing this with just like barely that green light, I assume is the only thing on it, and just coming up on this and seeing this? Could you imagine? Does this scare you, or am I alone on this one? Because it's not fully submerged, but it is still freaking terrifying. Please let me know.
Now, which way is this horse walking? If you see it walking forwards, that means you're a left-brained person. This means you're more logical and analytical, but if you see it going backwards, this means you're a right-brained person, meaning you're more intuitive and creative. Let me know in the comments, are you left-brained or right-brained?
So, we came in for an order earlier to print a poster for a vigil tonight.
Yes,
for somebody that passed. It's not
It's propaganda. I'm sorry. We don't fit that here.
Alrighty. So, what's your name?
Farrell. I'm print supervisor.
I'm one of the managers.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, we
so
cannot
they
print-
say they don't print
we don't
political
print-
propaganda.
No.
So this is somebody that passed away a couple years
That's
ago.
political
from a bullet.
propaganda, unfortunately. I'm
So
sorry.
this is for a prayer tonight, for a prayer vigil.
It's still propaganda, unfortunately.
What makes it propaganda?
Because he's a political figure, and I don't have to. Yeah.
Our general manager is going to be in on Monday. If you
No,
want to
it's
speak
totally
further
okay.
on
No,
the
we have-
subject,
we have
you would like to,
you're welcome to return.
How rare is your hair? Let's find out. About 85% of people have naturally black hair, and it's the most common worldwide, and sometimes it can look like a very dark brown. And people with darker hair tend to have more hairs per square inch on their head, which is why it normally looks thick and full. Only about 11% of people have naturally brown or brunette hair, and people with brown hair normally have medium to thick hair, with very few having thin hair. Only about 2% of people have naturally blonde hair, and blondes normally have more hair strands on their head at about 150,000, while those with brown or black hair normally have 100,000. Only about 1% of people have naturally red hair, but in Scotland, over 13% of the people have red hair. And red hair is a recessive trait, which means that each parent has to have a copy of the mutated gene. Less than 1% of people have white or gray hair, and you actually can be born naturally like this, but it is extremely rare. Less than 1% of people have hair that is two different colors, also called hair heterochromia. And normally when someone has this, they have hairs that are brown, blonde, or red that are in the background of darker colored hair.
This is what you can expect in the final week of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Amber Heard's team is expected to rest their case on Monday to save some time for the rebuttal case. This is because their remaining time is only 8 hours, while Johnny Depp's remaining time is 18 hours. This is the timeline for the rest of the case. But it is being reported that before Amber Heard's team rests their case, they will recall Johnny Depp to the stand. So that means that they'll be able to question him and his attorneys will be able to cross-examine him. It seems like they're doing this to try to catch him in some sort of lie, but it's not super clear what they're going to be asking him. So we'll find out tomorrow. In rebuttal, Johnny Depp's team is expected to call Jennifer Howell to testify for him. You can pause to read more about her, but she is the former boss of Whitney Henriquez, Amber Heard's sister. And in 2020, her declaration that she made to the court basically contradicts a lot of what Whitney said. Let me know if you want another video on that. Also, I think this says it all. Johnny Depp leaving court, Amber Heard leaving court. See you tomorrow.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your life. Thanksgiving edition. Thanksgiving holiday is the deadliest holiday of the year. There are the run-of-the-mill assaults and spikes in domestic violence, which some say increase more than 20% during Thanksgiving. With nearly 50 million people traveling by car, the National Safety Council states there are more car-related deaths on Thanksgiving Day than any other day of the year, partly due to more drunk drivers than are present even on New Year's Eve. After consuming vast amounts of food and alcohol during this holiday, heart attacks happen far and more often. The risk of dangerous bacteria and salmonella poisoning goes up drastically this time of year too. Burns from stoves and slips of kitchen knives are more common than you think, and send many to the emergency room. Make sure you follow me for all things strange, dark, and paranormal.
Some crazy information in this one. Make sure you stick around to the end because what the hell? This is also proof that my camera decides to block out some faces and just completely delete the heads in others. So anyways, this is the rolling giant, and he was chilling at the Valley View Mall in Dallas, Texas, which is not far from me. This thing looks like an absolute backrooms demon. I do not like this thing at all. It looks like you're about to be sacrificed, dude. Run, run. He would scoot around on this little thing. Obviously he couldn't move by himself because he wasn't an animatronic. He was just a terrifying being. But he would, I don't know how this supported his weight. First off, demon. This photo looks like it's straight out of the back rooms. Straight out of it. Imagine you're chilling in the back rooms and you're stuck in an abandoned mall. And this thing is there. Which, by the way, Valley View Mall was abandoned a few years after that thing got there. So guess what? It's in there. It's in an abandoned mall, just chilling. And, oh my God. Yeah, in 2023, Valley View Mall was completely shut down and that thing is in it somewhere. So, yeah, this thing is somewhere there. If not out in the open, somewhere in the walls in, storage. That's horrifying. I do like his little flower hands though. That is kind of diva.
Fascinating facts you didn't know. Sony once sold its waterproof Walkmans in a bottle of water to prove that it was really waterproof. A sheep in New Zealand avoided being caught and shorn by hiding in a cave for 6 years. When finally found, his fleece contained enough wool to make 20 large men's suits. Doctors 100 years ago used to withhold informing the patient of their serious condition, even including if the patient was dying. In 2015, a Louisiana man named Jake Williams was arrested for drunkenly riding a horse on the highway. When detained, he said the horse knows the way home, and the sheriff concluded it did not constitute a DUI. The amount of water in Lake Superior could cover all of North America and South America in a foot of water. Lemons aren't a naturally occurring food. Studies have shown that the lemon is a cross between bitter orange, which itself is a hybrid of pomelos and mandarins, and citron.
This is a good reminder to double check every single nook and cranny in your house. Because in 2019, this couple came home after a week-long vacation to see that there was a stranger living in their home. And he had most likely been living there while they were also in the house. Also, if you like these kinds of stories, you'll like tonight's episode. Upon arriving home after a week away, Josh Campbell tried the front door of his house, but there was a stranger on the inside pulling it closed. That stranger was 26-year-old Ezekiel Zayas, and yes, this is a video he left on their personal computers. The two were able to call the police and eventually get him out of the house, but that's when they saw all of the terrifying stuff he had been up to in the home. He also left them videos on their computers that included incredibly personal information that they had only shared with each other, meaning that he had been listening to their conversations. But the worst part was the knives. Ezekiel had left notes in the house about surgeries that he wanted to perform on the family, like a hand transplant. And when the couple went into their bedroom, they saw that there were knives and other utensils all around the bed. It seemed like he was preparing to do some sort of operation on them. Frogging stories are absolutely terrifying, and I don't want to give too much away, but you might be spooked by tonight's episode.
This is one of those videos where by the end of it you have an existential crisis and also wonder why the fuck do I follow this guy? No, see, that's all of your videos. You shit! So welcome to things that are just way too big, Space Edition. So let's start with this. What the f***? This is the famous Rosetta's Comet, and this is Los Angeles. So if this thing hit us, well, it'd fuck up your Tuesday. However, get this. The asteroid that killed the daddy dinosaurs was double the size! Now next, we think our hexagon-shaped Earth is pretty big. That was a joke, it's fucking round. But what about our blue planet next to a black hole? This is the black hole at the center of the Phoenix cluster. And that puny fucking thing is our solar system. Can we just take a minute to realize how fucking terrifying that is? Measuring at about 118 billion kilometers across, that's 19 times the distance from Sun to Pluto. Imagine seeing that! Next, we have the biggest known supercluster in the entire universe. So big, it takes 10 billion years for light to cross it. The universe is 13 billion years old. Everything up there is scary. Elon!
What if the purge was real? A new political party is voted into office in the US. The new party amends the Constitution to allow one day every year where all crime is legal. Most Americans bunker down in their homes, but a group of murdering psychopaths patrol the streets, and this actually prevents riots, but the majority of the murders actually happen between angry family members. Financial crimes are rampant, and the stock market crashes every single year the day before the purge.
You may have heard of La Llorona, but do you know the terrifying story of La Quemada? A woman who plunged her face into a bucket of hot coals to see if her boyfriend only loved her for her beauty. And before we dive in, this week's episode is all legends and ghost stories from Mexico City. So back in the 1600s in Mexico City, there was this beautiful woman named Beatrice who lived on a street that's now called La Quemada. And Beatrice fell in love with an Italian man named Don Martin. I mean, who wouldn't? But her father kept warning her about this guy. He thought that Don Martin only loved Beatrice for her beauty. She thought if she removed her beauty from the equation, she would know if Don Martin loved her for her. So that night, she gathered up a bucket of hot coals and she plunged her face into them. And now it's rumored that La Quemada is one of the most haunted streets in Mexico City. Some say that at night, you can see just her eyes watching you from the dark, that the rest of her face has completely melted away. Anyways, you should check out this week's episode if you want to hear more stories from Mexico City. Legends, folklore, myths, ghost stories, you name it.
I'm going to start referring to the Holy Bible as Christian mythology, and here's why. First thing, most Christians don't even realize how much of this religion sits on top of another one. You and Jewish people believe in the same God, Yahweh. You guys just disagree on whether or not Jesus specifically is his son, right? New Testament is basically just a part 2 to the first one, but you guys changed the first one so that the second one made more sense. How could that possibly ever be truth? Now, before everybody's like, Jace, you just don't get it. I need you to understand that I grew up in this shit. I was Catholic, and I went to church school and in conversion therapy in the woods because I didn't fit. I had demons or whatever. And then somebody at house church gave me this Bible, and I've been using it because there's a notes-taking section. And I want to try and understand the thing that was used to abuse me for so long. And I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense. Early Christian writings, the earliest ones that we have, are from Paul's letters, and those weren't written for about 20 years after Jesus died. That's like nobody writing about 9/11 until 2021. Nobody writing about COVID until 2040. Would you accept that? The Gospels were written much later, like 30 to 60 years, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There weren't eyewitnesses. Nobody in this book met Jesus and wrote and talked about it, okay? It's virgin birth, right? Original Hebrew line says young woman. Later the Greek translates it to virgin, and the gospel just quotes the Greek, so it reads like some sort of miracle when
that same thing happened in other people's religions before this, and translations are doing much of the heavy lifting here. And you see this move a lot. The writers will say this happened to fulfill, and they'll pick an old verse and then frame it, the scene, so it matches it, and then call it fulfilled. That's not theology, that is shaping a story. Big picture, right? Early churches had many Jesus books and letters, and it took centuries before leaders picked up the table of contents that we use now. That just means that people decided what counted and then what didn't. That's human curation. This book is not the word of God. It did not fall out of the sky. There is nothing in here that proves the divine or the universe or explains anything about how our reality works. The core arc isn't even unique. The ancient world is full of savior stories with death and life coming back patterns. Think older myths like Orsis or Attis. It's the same pattern, just different names. None of this means that there's no good lessons in this book, right? It's written by humans for humans. There are some good lessons. There's a lot of what? But it's not all bad. But it doesn't explain God or the universe. The Bible reads like people who are just trying to make sense of pain and power and purpose and where we find ourselves here. That's what mythology does. Believe in whatever God you want. Just be honest that this faith is not, it's not evidence. It's faith-based. You don't have to shrink God down to one culture or one book.
This is what you can expect in the final week of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Amber Heard's team is expected to rest their case on Monday to save some time for the rebuttal case. This is because their remaining time is only 8 hours, while Johnny Depp's remaining time is 18 hours. This is the timeline for the rest of the case, but it is being reported that before Amber Heard's team rests their case, they will recall Johnny Depp to the stand. So that means that they'll be able to question him and his attorneys will be able to cross-examine him. It seems like they're doing this to try to catch him in some sort of lie, but it's not super clear what they're going to be asking him, so we'll find out tomorrow. In rebuttal, Johnny Depp's team is expected to call Jennifer Howell to testify for him. You can pause to read more about her, but she is the former boss of Whitney Henriquez, Amber Heard's sister. And in 2020, her declaration that she made to the court basically contradicts a lot of what Whitney said. Let me know if you want another video on that. Also, I think this says it all. Johnny Depp leaving court, Amber Heard leaving court. See you tomorrow.
Yo, what's up? These are Kids That Killed, Part 5. Today on our list, Aaron Campbell. On July 2nd, 2018, 6-year-old Alicia McPhail was nowhere to be found throughout her house. Her parents searched her room, the living room, and every other part of the house, but she could not be found. But the crazy thing was her bicycle was still parked out on the curb, so she couldn't have gone far. I mean, she was only 6 years old and didn't have a habit of running away, so her parents began to worry. But it turns out that this 16-year-old psychopath Aaron Campbell had actually contacted Alicia's dad the night before trying to buy some drugs, and when he went to pick him up and Alicia's dad wouldn't answer, he snuck inside the home, grabbed Alicia while she was sleeping, and kidnapped her. Alicia then woke up while she was being carried around by her kidnapper, and he told her that she had nothing to worry about and that he was a friend of her father's and he was going to get her home safely. But that was far from the truth. It'd be shortly after the young girl woke up that the 16-year-old would move on to brutally beat, rape, and kill this young 3-foot-tall 6-year-old girl. It wouldn't be until the morning after this incident where the parents and neighbors would have a search party going out to look for the young girl, and they would find her dumped in a woodland area about 15 minutes away from their home with over 117 different injuries on her body. It was said that they found trace evidence of semen on this girl's body, and it was even claimed by forensics that she was beaten long after she had already died. It was later found out by the police during an investigation that Aaron Campbell was the one who committed these horrific acts on this young girl, and at the age of 20, when he was in prison already, he actually got beat and his front tooth went through the top of his lip. Sorry, Aaron, but you got what was coming to you.